Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is Rich Ramirza from East Rosebud Fly Shop, the Foul Hooked Whitey. That's a whitefish. That's a whitefish. How are you, Phil?
I'm fine. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you know something? It's an honor to have you here. And I just mean that, just straight up.
Well, that kind of makes me feel good to hear that, you know.
Well, I mean, it's true. You know, I've been running a Billings fly shop now for over 15 years, and I've known you for most of that time. And, you know, people in fly fishing that have had some success, and I'm not even talking the success you've had. I just mean success like they're accomplished fishermen or, I mean, you know how it is now. Anybody that has a YouTube page in fly fishing can be successful. The value in having Phil Gonzalez in this interviewee's chair is because you are what I would call a fly fishing industry OG. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I guess I understand that.
Translate OG for me, if you would.
If I'm thinking right, is oh my God.
No, it's original gangster.
Oh.
Now I want to explain something to you. See, like, you know, I'm 58, so I'm older. You're obviously more mature than I am. So when, you know, we were growing up, you know, gangsters weren't cool. But now, with the kids, gangsters are cool. I don't know how that happened. So you're an OG, you're an original gangster because of, honestly, what you achieved in your fly fishing career.
I've never quite looked at it that way, but I guess I fit the image. I'll accept it.
Well, it's true because basically, and I'm going to lead this without really knowing where I'm leading it. And what I mean by that is that what I know about you is what I know about you. And I'm going to kind of preface some of those points, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Then you talk wherever you want and can. Okay.
All right.
Basically, when you used to kind of first walk around in my shop, and you kind of ambled around in my shop, right? Because
I did.
You got a couple of bad wheels, right?
I got one bad wheel. It's
okay.
going to come off the rim one of these days on me.
And we're talking to knee, right?
Right.
Okay. Somebody whispered to me one time and said, "Do you have any idea why you get to fish on the BigHorn River?" And I'm like, "No. That guy over there." And that person pointed to you. So let's go ahead and start with really what to me is the big white elephant in the room, right?
Well, you know, I was fortunate to grow up here in Montana.
Okay.
And I come from a family of 15 brothers and sisters.
You had 15 brothers and sisters.
Right.
Wow.
But anyway, I always spent my time as a child hanging around the Yellowstone, you know, trying to catch fish and whatnot. Didn't know what I was doing. And back in the day when the folks would go get groceries, they'd always put them in boxes, and they'd tie the top of the box with string. Well, I'd take that string and use that for my fishing line. And after I acquired enough where I could do the old spin and throw that thing out in the river,
yeah,
that's how I got started, actually.
Wow.
Wow. And as I got older, I've always read hunting and fishing magazines.
Yeah.
I've always been basically, involved mentally in the next issue coming out.
Wow.
And stuff like that.
I loved how you put that, involved mentally.
Well, it's the way it was.
Yeah.
Back in the day,
yeah,
when I was growing up, there weren't any fly shops like you have here.
Yeah.
There weren't any videos. There were nothing.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could rely on was word of mouth, and there was nobody around me that I knew that was of my age that did and enjoyed what I did. So when Outdoor Life hit the bookshelves, I was there.
Wow.
With my quarter. That's what it cost back then.
And where did you buy your Outdoor Life in Billings, Montana back in the day?
Anywhere I could find one.
Okay. All
and,
right.
it was a magazine that wasn't put in every place like it is. Well, Outdoor Life isn't in existence anymore, but it is.
Neither. It seems like there are a lot of magazines.
Yeah. And the reason being, it's just like today, that past generation has been overtaken by the new kind of communication.
Of course.
And so, but anyway, back in those days, I got to know guys' names like Lee Wolf,
Oh, wow.
Joan Wolf,
Wow.
and the old timers.
Yeah, of course.
And that was only through reading Outdoor
wow.
Life.
Wow.
And the fortunate thing is, as I got older and whatnot, I became more and more used to reading their articles, and I got more and more interested in it. And it piqued my interest to the point where I was always wishing that someday I could be like these guys.
Wow.
And
Well, you were.
yeah, I guess I did follow through with that. And I had a part with Suzuki Great Outdoors, which was a Saturday show, on TV. It was
Wow.
fishing. And this was back in 1984, I
Okay, so
believe.
in 84, which is the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, good.
Wow.
But anyway, all of everything I'm telling you is all misspent youth. So you graduated from high school. I did too, but I wasn't an honor student. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh my gosh, neither was I. And I wanted to say something there, but we had an agreement prior to coming on here. And that agreement was that I was not going to use any profanity during the course of this broadcast. True?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm going to stick to that because I can be a gentleman. I cannot cuss.
I've known you only as being a gentleman.
Thank you.
And I mean that wholeheartedly.
Well, thank you, sir. That's an
Getting
honor.
back to my story, I did a show on the BigHorn in '84.
Yeah.
And at that time, the American Sportsman was on air, and so was Wild Kingdom. And for some odd reason, they've taken off the air, and there were no any more, sport shows out
I
there.
remember the
hunting,
Wild
fishing.
Kingdom. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So I was contacted, and how, I don't know, but I met a gentleman he was from Oregon, Gresham, Oregon,
Yeah.
and he had a little local TV show, and we floated the Bighorn, and I did the show with him. And when that thing aired, I can't remember if it was ABC or NBC, but anyway, they showed it on a Saturday, and they rerun it again on
Yeah.
a Sunday, something they had never done before. And I got a phone call from the network saying, hey, we'd like to do something with you, but we've already allocated our funds for this year, but next year, we'll get in hold of you. And that was, like I say, back in '84. I'm still waiting, but I've given up on that.
But let me just back up a little bit, okay? So you spent your youth growing up with a large family in Billings, Montana. You got your interest in angling as a kid, right?
Absolutely.
So where did the transition become to you deciding to build a lodge on the Bighorn River? And I don't want to skip around too much because chronologically your history, I'm just really not familiar with it, right? But to me, where did your infamous court case come from?
Well, before we get into the court case, I'd like to just go back a few
Yes,
years.
sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm going to lead you into how I got into fly fishing.
You got it.
We lived next to the river.
Okay.
So I was a river rat.
Gotcha.
Anyway, there was always, the Yellowstone always threatened to go over its banks
Yes.
and flood the little town of Huntley out.
Yeah.
And there was an electrical REA, it was called that back then in the day, and today it's Yellowstone Electric Company
Gotcha.
or whatever. And when high water was coming, on the weekends, the guys that worked for the REA would bring these junk cars. You've seen this along riverbanks
course.
where keep erosion and
Yeah.
all. Well, they would bring vehicles in there that were Model Ts, Model A's, stuff like that I wish I could say that I own one.
Wow.
But
They did this with riprap, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They just throw them in the river, and you'd see them go down and never come back up.
Right.
They don't float.
No.
But anyway, I always went down there when I seen a new fresh of vehicles brought down there. They'd bring tractors, combines, and
Crazy.
just anything that would,
Yeah.
help that bank. And I always went down there looking for treasures.
Yeah, of
underneath
course.
the seats, looking for whatever I could find.
Sure.
Coins and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it just so happened to be that this one particular time they brought a Buick that had been in a front end collision. The back end was fine, but the whole front end was gone, it was just wrecked. And I tried to get in the trunk, and I couldn't get into that trunk for reasons, that thing was built like a Sherman tank.
For sure. Oh my gosh.
And I used to get in from the back seat.
Yeah.
And when you pull that seat forward, you could see in the trunk.
Yeah.
But with this guy, you couldn't do that. And I spent probably 3 days with a hammer and chisel and everything I could imagine to try to pop that lid.
Just to get in that trunk.
Yeah. And I finally got it done, you know. And when it popped up and it raised, there's a spare tire sitting there, and on top of that tire is this rod.
Oh.
I can't really equate it as being a rod because back in the day it was a pole.
Okay,
And it was one of those telescopic metal poles with the wind-up reel.
Yeah, and those are like from like the 30s and the 40s or even earlier.
And it had a little button on the side, or a little, I don't know if you call it a button, but anyway, you pull back on this lever, I guess is the word I'm trying to say, and that line would just zing, you know, back into the reel. And more than once, I'd hooked myself trying to grab the end of the line. In those days, I never even fly fished. I didn't even know what fly fishing was other than what I had read.
But this was a telescopic fly rod with an automatic reel.
That was my first introduction to fly fishing. And I caught, I don't know how many suckers, shad, carp, you name it.
Unbelievable.
The species that the Yellowstone offered, I caught them.
Would you have kept pounding away at that trunk for 3 days just anyway, or did you just have a gut feeling, you know, hey, there must be something special in this thing?
Well, I think in my existence, my stubbornness always prevails. And I was just at that point where I wasn't going to give up and let that Buick trunk beat me.
Some gold in that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So anyway, when I got that thing, you got to remember, like I mentioned earlier, there weren't any books or illustrations. I didn't know how to tie a knot. Wow. And leader was not even in existence in my vocabulary because I never saw a leader, a tapered leader.
And you had to figure this entire rod out yourself because, you know, we take it for such granted that like, oh, I need to figure out how to do something. Google, here's your information.
Yeah.
You've just got this. You know it's a fishing rod. You know it extends automatically, right?
Correct.
But you really don't know anything else about it after that.
Beyond that, it was just total, you know, trial and error.
Wow.
We had a lumber yard in Huntley at that time, and they would sell fishing line and hooks and stuff like that. Remember, back in those days, it was Eagle Claw, and I think Eagle Claw is still in business.
I think so, too.
And I'd buy a cart of hooks, because I didn't have a lot of money, but in the finding money underneath these sits allowed me to buy hooks or buy some line. And that's how I operated.
I just think that's amazing because, you made your practice, you made your business on the Bighorn River, which is not what we're talking about yet. But you did that, and, you know, the drive-in in the first, 5 miles, 6 miles of the fishery?
Right.
That's all, those are famous cars that were part of the anti-erosion process you're talking about where you found your first fly rod.
Absolutely. Every time I float down the Bighorn and I see those cars lined up, there, my memory, I have a flashback.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember those cars, and that's where, you know, I think to myself, those things meant something to me. They had to.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that's crazy how that really is how it all started. So anyway, we're gonna be done with our first episode, and we're gonna get back with episode 2 with Phil Gonzalez here at East Rosebud Fly Shop shortly. Thank you very much. Out.